Hello everyone, welcome to lecture 4 of programming with C++. So today we are going to learn about expressions and statements. So by the end of this lecture, you will and you will learn about statements and different types of statements in C++ and expressions and understand what they are, and also various types of expressions you encounter, and you also see how all these concepts work together in real code. So starting with expressions. So what are expressions? So an expression is simply a combination of three things. That's the variable, that's the operands, and then we have the operators. So many consist of one or more operands. So it may consist of one or more operands, and then may consist of zero or more operators to produce a value. So example is A plus B. So A is an operand. A is an operand, and then this plus is the operator, and then the B2 is an operand. But this C is just a single operand. Okay, the C is a single operand with no operator. So here we have the operator 1, then we have the operand 1, and then operator, and then we have the operator 2. So we have the types of expression. So we have the integral expressions, we have the floating point expression, next expression, conditional expression, and then we have the logical expression and then the pointer. Starting with the mixed expression. So it has operands of different data type, contains integers and then floating points. So example we have this. So we have the 2 plus 3.5. So the 2 here is an integer, and then the 3.5 here is a floating point. Together mixed expressions. So they are all mixed expressions. And then we have the operator bringing out the results. So we have the 6 being an integer divided by the 4 being an integer, and then added by the 3.9, which is the floating point. That is the mixed expression. So we can see two or more, and you can see two types of data types um, combined together. So moving on to relational the conditional expression where the value produced depends on the value of the condition. And then the relational expression yields results of type bool, which takes a true or false statement. Okay, so x is less than or equal to y. Okay, so it can be true, it can be false, and then x plus y is greater than 2. It can be true, it can also be false. So that's the relational expression. Then we have the logical expression. So the logical expression combines two or more relational expressions and then produces both type results. So we say the relational expression yields a true or false result. Okay, so here x is greater than y, then um amper then x. Okay, So the pointer expression also produce address values. We learned about pointer the other time. So we have the ampersand and then the x. So this gets the memory address of variable x. Okay, this means it's getting the address of the variable x, and then the ptr is the pointer variable, and then the ptr plus plus moves the pointer to the next memory location. And then ending expressions. So here is something crucial. So every expression in C++ must end with must end with semicolon. The semicolon tells the compiler, I'm done with this expression. Okay. So you can see we have semicolon at the end of our expression. So let's look at comments. So before we will move on to statements, let's talk about comments. Okay, so comments are notes you write in your code that the computer ignores. So they are for humans to read and understand what the code does. Okay, so to make it readable and then easier to understand, we use comments. So we have the types of comments. So we have the single line comments and then we have the multi-line comments. So the single line comments, it applies uh, comments to a single line only, and then the compiler ignores any text after the forward slash, and it will be executed. It uses forward slash and forward double slash. So you see, we've introduced the comments here in our code. And then this is the only line being commented, but not all the lines. So you should try using these comments in your coding to make it readable. So with the multi comments, it can span multiple lines. They start with the forward slash and then asterisk and then also end with asterisk and then the forward slash. So we can see we've used it here in our code. Then moving on to indentation. So indentation is about making your code neat and then readable. It's like organizing your room. It doesn't change how things work, but it makes everything much easier to understand. So this is the source code for indentation. You can you can be using them in your code to make it more flexible, like easier to understand. So moving on to statements. Now, a statement is a single instruction that tells the computer to perform an action. Okay, so think of it a statement as complete sentences in your program. So moving on to the types of statement that we have. So we have the selection statements that's used for making decisions. That's like if else, and then we have the iterative statements used for repeating tasks like loops. Then we have the um, expression expression statements that's um, used to evaluate expressions. Okay, evaluate expressions, and then we have the declaration statement used to create variables, and then we have the jump statements. used to change the normal flow of execution. And then we have the last one being compound statements, used to group multiple statements together. Now let's explore each type with examples. Okay, so the selection statement, if that's the condition, if then you bring your condition in the parenthesis and then your statement. So if statement L, if then you bring your condition, then statement, else then you bring your statement and then you use your switch, you bring your condition and then statement. So this is the syntax for if statement. Then we've used it in our code. You can also try using them in your code. And then if using indentation. So we've used some in our code here. You can see we put a semicolon here. That's the termination. And then syntax for if else statement. Syntax for if else statement. So the if else statement gives two choices. If this condition is true, do this. Otherwise, do that. That's how it works. And then you bring your if statement. If and then you bring your expression and then you bring your statement. Else, then you bring your statement too, and then you are good to go. You can also practice on it in your own. So the nested if statement. So the nested if statement, sometimes you need to check multiple conditions. Nested if statements let you put one if statement inside another. As we talked of loop, a nested loop is a loop in another loop. Okay, so this two is a statement in another statement. Okay, then here is a nested if statement using indentation. See, we can see the indentation here. So moving on to switch statements. So a switch statements are useful when you need to compare one value against many possible values. So they are like multi-way if else statements. Okay. So important rules switch for switch statement. So the expression must be an integer, character, or a boolean, and also each ca- each case value must be different, and then also each case value must be constant, must be a constant. And then we have the break statement. So here we have the break statement here. So the break statement um tells the program to exit the switch block immediately. Without break statement, the program would continue executing the next case, which is usually not what you want. And then we also have the continuous statement. The continuous statement is used in loops. So it skips it skips the rest of the current iteration and then makes to the next one. Okay. So um note that continue is typically used in loops not switch statements. Okay, so the example in the slide showing continue in a switch statement is unusual and not recommended. Okay, so this isn't recommended. We looked at the types of operators. Okay, so types of operators. So we have the arithmetic operators, assignment operator, conditional operator, relational operator, and then logic operator. We'll be looking at it in our next lecture. So arithmetic operators in C++ operator, we have this operators here, and then this means modulo, okay. And then other types of operators we have the unary operator that it has only one operand, and then binary operator has two operands. We'll be looking at this in our next lessons. So the logical operator, with the logical operator, this ampersand means and. Okay, ampersand means and. That is true only if both conditions are true. Okay, and then the logical operator. This is um this is true if at least one condition is true. Then the conditional operator. The conditional operator is a shorthand way to write simple if-else statements. It's the only ternary operator in C++. Okay, so this is the syntax. We'll be looking at it in our next lectures. So the increment and decrement operator. So the increment operator, that is the plus plus, that's add one to a variable. And then the decrement operator is subtract one to a variable. So this is the syntax for the prefix increment. We've used it in coding, and then this is also the syntax for the decrement. That's the prefix increment. And so the operator precedence. So this is the law of precedence. So whenever you see um, a code like this, you will first solve what's in the bracket, and then you move on to the multiplication if there is any, and then division if there is any, and then modulo if there is any, before you come to the plus and then minus. Okay, so this is the law of precedence. You have to get that in your mind. Alright, so here is lecture 4, programming with C++. I'll urge you all to keep practicing.